Power of Brands webinar. We're here at the University of East Anglia in Norwich with Peter, my colleague, who you'll have seen on films, I think, already, and two students who are currently doing our full-time postgrad course on brand leadership. Helen, who's from Greece,
Hi.
and Toby, who's from, well, Nigeria and America and Britain and wherever. Everywhere. And we're here for the next 30 minutes to answer whatever questions that you have. So there's at least 3 different ways of doing that. You can join in the live chat on YouTube. You can post questions on the webinar step on the FutureLearn platform, or you can tweet us using the hashtag FLBrands. So any of those ways, and questions will get through to us. We've had a few already sent in, so we're going to start with one of those. But if you have a question that occurs to you as we're talking, please do post it, and we'll do our best between us to answer it. So I guess the first question I've got here is quite a challenging one, really, which is branding. Does branding help the consumer, or does it cheat the consumer? Is it a horrible capitalist trick, or does it help us? Does it help make life better? Peter, where would you start with that one?
I think it depends on your perspective. Undoubtedly, branding does help consumers. It makes the world a richer place. We've got more products, we've got more experiences, we've got more services than ever before. So if you just simply can, compare the everyday life of a person now to say 100 years ago, brands have been instrumental in improving people's lives. However, I think there's also some people who would say that there is this capitalist conspiracy, or whatever you want to call it, which uses up the world's resources. It encourages consumption or overconsumption of products. You can look around the world and look at food waste. You can look at the impact that certain types of brands have on us, tobacco, alcohol, for example. There's people who perhaps question self-esteem with certain beauty products. So, there are arguments both ways. But my personal belief is that branding can be and should be a force for good in the world.
Helen, what do you think?
I think it's a very interesting question, because it may depend on the location in the world. So, for example, from the research that I've done so far in the course, in Greece, people actually have a very positive opinion about branding. And it would be also useful to...
So we should explain Greece has had a really hard time economically for the last 10 years, probably.
Yes.
So what, in that context, why is branding seen? Is branding seen as something that can create economic growth then? Is that the reason?
I think, yes, people have put their hopes on branding. And also, so we haven't had really aggressive advertising in Greece, like perhaps in other Western countries. So many people usually, because they are subject of very intense advertising, they may think that branding is something bad. So we should also discern between branding and advertising, because a brand could be could be good, but it could go wrong in advertising. So these are 2 separate things for me. Greece and Greek young people are really positive about the whole concept of branding in general. Yes.
What about Toby? What's your experience in various places you've lived in?
I think it also, absolutely. It depends on where you're from and where you live. I sort of see branding as, it's kind of like a world without color. If you didn't have, within us sat right here with different personalities, and I believe a brand is a different personality in itself. So not having that is very difficult for me to relate to something. And if I don't relate to it, why should I get it? Why should I have it? So I feel like that's one side to it, being obviously a positive, but with everything that's good, people do take advantage of that, so we've got to be careful. And I also think branding actually holds companies responsible. Social responsibility is now becoming a huge thing that's a part of the brand. And I don't think that would happen if we weren't so adamant to see the personality of the brand really come through with every aspect of what they do in the organization. So to some degree, yes, absolutely. Some people use it for, to cheat consumers. But I think the general idea of what it started off to be, especially in the modern world, is for, to have something to relate to in such a relatively bland world if we didn't have all of these things. So
and colourless world without branding.
And actually, I think, just taking up that point, I think it's a very well made point, this idea that brands need to have this responsibility. There's no hiding place anymore for brands. If a brand does something bad, someone somewhere will blow a whistle. Someone somewhere will take a photo, a film of it, and it'll be released, because we're all connected these days. But also, it's quite interesting, because if you take something like Google, one of the most valuable and powerful brands in the world, when they first were founded, their motto, their slogan was "Don't be evil." And then last November, about a year ago, they changed it very slightly to "Do the right thing." And actually, there's a very subtle change there, because "Don't be evil," of course, says that we mustn't do anything bad. But not doing anything bad is not the same thing as doing the right thing. So then the question becomes, or the option, or the opportunity becomes, that anyone working in Google must, in their everyday life, do the right thing. But then what is the right thing? Is the right thing paying all your tax in Ireland, where the tax rate is lower, and trying to avoid it, or although they're not doing anything illegal, perhaps not paying the corporation tax in the UK? Is that doing the right thing? I'm not so sure.
Well, we get into a deep and political conversation here, but it sounds like generally we're brand positive, as I guess you'd expect in living in the world of branding. And I think, Peter, you said that branding, because it is such a powerful influence on people, can influence for positive social good as well as for making money.
Yeah, I mean, we were just talking there about sort of corporate social responsibility and so on. And I think corporate social responsibility has changed from being an order winner. So in other words, you might have chosen between a brand which was corporately socially responsible and one which wasn't. So you might have chosen the one that was more responsible. But all brands have to be corporately social responsible these days. So it's now to the extent to which they have this purpose beyond profit. And we're seeing certain brands now entering the market in the last 10 years or so that exist purely to do good in the world. Things like Tom's Shoes, like One Water, like Product Red, which tries to link the consumer who's got lots of money in their pocket to the brands who have got lots of money in their banks to produce these one-off limited edition red products. And all the money from, no, that's not right. Some of the money from that goes to solving the HIV/AIDS problem. So we are seeing a new type of brand which exists purely to do good in the world, I think.
Great. Okay. Well, if that you may agree or disagree with some of that, and please do comment, add your own questions. We have actually very specific question next, though, about the postgraduate course that Helen and Toby are almost at the end of the first term already. Amazingly, really? Yes. Oh, amazingly.
Scary.
It's a very simple question. Why devote a whole year to studying branding? So why obviously people are interested in the course. Why did you choose to do it, Toby? Do you want to?
I guess because I think we're so consumed by the commercialized world, and we don't necessarily as individuals understand it fully. And that lack of understanding was a massive sort of like struggle for me personally, because I was like, what does that mean to be attached to a brand or to like a brand? And I think that was essentially the first. So I was very interested between the creation of a product something then happens in the middle, and then there's advertising.
Yes.
So what is that
What is that
something that
something?
happens
Yes.
in the middle
Yes.
that allows for the brand to do way more than me to like it? Because I don't just like it. There must be something else that attaches me to that product, because it's such a weird attachment that we have to things. So I was like, what is that thing that happens in the middle that allows for you to, you know, want something?
Yes.
So that sort of curiosity was the beginning of me wanting to do a brand led.
So almost the curiosity of it from a consumer's point of view.
Yeah.
Of what is this thing and how does it work?
Yeah.
Yeah. What about you, Helen? What was your motivation?
You know, actually 2 years ago, I was on the other side of the screen. I was doing an undergraduate degree in international relations, and I was watching webinars and posing questions. And really, I mean, by the end of my degree, I thought that this is the thing. Sorry, this is the thing that has interested me the most. And the online course just opened to me a whole field that had that really fascinated me.
So you're a previous future learner.
Yes.
You've been through the
Yes.
Secret Power of Brands course.
Yes.
Fine. Okay. And then so you wanted to go deeper as a result
Yes.
of that, right?
So what I thought was blending, let's say, the science that I was already studying, international relations, with branding, and we will explore more about this in our next semester, Frontiers of Branding. But I'm really interested in how branding can go to other fields as well. Could be place branding, could be nation branding, could be, and even something more than that. How can a nation, Greece, for example, how can branding help build a narrative post-crisis, maybe
for a whole country?
Yes. This has been something that really fascinated me and was like the starting point for me to go dig deeper into this whole science.
Okay, so for you as a consumer, you as a Greek in a way, wanting to understand how branding could help
as a citizen,
as a citizen of Greece. Peter, what other motivations have you seen with students on the course?
It's quite interesting because we take students from all sorts of backgrounds and all sorts of parts of the world. Some have come from a creative background who want to understand the sort of the nuts and bolts, the strategy, you know, the thing that you were referring to, Toby, there, that you know, what happens in the middle. Some people come from a marketing point of view, and they understand what marketing is about, understanding the consumer and having that consumer focus. But they want to understand more about what a company and how a company presents itself and reflects itself in this thing we call a brand. So that's another approach. Other people come onto the course with perhaps a more sort of HR type background, and they're interested in how a brand can influence an organization and shape what an organization does. So there are all sorts of reasons to come on a course about branding, and I think that really stems from the fact that we've already sort of explored the thing that you so cleverly put, Helen, the fact that, you know, you can apply this concept of brand to almost anything, you know, whether it is a fast-moving consumer good, whether it's a car, whether it's a nation, whether it's a religion, whether it's a celebrity, whether it's a university. You know, any aspect of life, I think, is capable of being branded. And then the question is, you know, how can you make a successful brand from so many different standpoints?
Very interesting. So it's a very broad range of reasons to do it, isn't it?
Absolutely, yeah.
So I think very often I'm most intrigued by people whose background is design,
Yes,
and who want to add strategy skills to their creativity, and that sometimes creates a very interesting combination of different ways of looking at the world, really. Now we have somebody here, a future learner, who says a brand is not only about communication and attractive packaging, it's also a serious instrument of corporate management. So the power, we're familiar with the power of brands externally among consumers. What about this internal, you mentioned HR, Peter, this internal dimension. How important is brands and branding as an internal management tool in a way?
Well, it's a fact of life that we all need to go out and work. We all need to earn money, and clearly, any company that is employing people wants their employees to come to work with a spring in their step. We don't want going to work to be a downer. We want any company wants its workforce to be engaged, to be infused. So, if branding can be used in such a way to engage employees, to infuse employees, to make them feel that they're doing something good in the world, they're making the world a better place, either through giving consumers better products, better experiences, or even, as we discussed a little bit earlier, in the wider social context, making the world a better place, then branding has a really strong part to play. It's about motivating employees. It's about getting employees to use their creative physical energy in the 8 hours that they're at work, rather than on the golf course at weekends or something.
Bring the whole of themselves to work in a way.
Exactly. So I think if you've got a brand which you can really emotionally buy into as an individual, you're more likely to give more of yourself. I mean, a very sort of trite example is my own example. I used to work in industry, and don't get me wrong, I loved working in industry. Made good money. I created good products and so on. But the way I describe it is that when I was working in industry, I made budget. Now that I'm working at UEA or university, I make a difference. So actually, I do get up with a spring in my step, because I know that I'm going to be working with some brilliant young minds. I'm going to get infused. I feel I'm doing some good in the world, and it's a joy.
So UEA, university as a brand, in a way, helps that, does it?
Yeah, I think so. I think so. I mean, being part of an organization that is educating and training and developing skills, and it's not just education, it's also skills development. It's creating an environment around here where people want to be and can be themselves, can be free. I think here at UEA we've got something like students from 150, 160 different nationalities, and it's a brilliant work environment.
It's a microcosm of the world, really.
It is.
So now, Toby, I happen to know that you work part-time for one of the world's biggest brands. I think you're not allowed probably to say which one.
Yeah.
But leaving aside the name, how does the brand influence you as not a consumer but an employee?
That is probably one of the most important things for us as employees of the company that drives us daily. It is the one thing that I think they base who they choose to work for them. So it's that heavily influences the type of people.
So you have to fit the brand before you even get a job there.
To be honest with you, yes, and I think that then controls in some ways how people then view the brand, because people come to us and we're the point of contact before they buy a product. We're the first point of contact. So if I'm not a good representation of this brand, then I shouldn't and I think it's an incredible way of actually making sure that your vision and your mission as a company is communicated effectively to the consumer, because in a way, beyond that product, I feel like with regards to feedback that we get, beyond that product, people feel more connected to us, and then they feel more connected to the brand, which is very.
And then they buy more things.
And then that happens, because they feel like they're not being, because all of us, I think all of us in the company are all genuine people, so we don't necessarily try hard to force you to buy anything. We just have great conversations, which then leads people to feel like, and I think maybe I'm biased, but I think maybe feel connected to that brand. And for an employee, it's very important to know that every day the point of me being there is to do that.
Yeah, okay, fascinating.
So it's quite interesting. Brand as a culture, as a culture tool within an organization is very, 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 very important. And I don't hate going to work, which a lot of people tend to do, because if there's no purpose behind me being there, if I'm not really doing anything, like you said, making a difference, why am I waking up at 7 o'clock in the morning to go and stand somewhere that doesn't stand for anything?
And in fact, Tony Shea, the boss of Zappos, the shoe retailer in the States, says our brand is our culture, that there's no difference between the two, in a way that the culture inside the organization creates the brand outside the organization, and probably the other way around as well. Both ways around. Helen, what's your view of the internal role of brands?
I think a very interesting question is because large organizations are quite bureaucratic, and then I think the question that arises is, how can the brand be translated internally in different functions, and is there a cross-functional understanding of the brand? And also, I think the corporate brand can be a catalyst in organizational change. So it can be leveraged to bring all sorts of change in the organization, whether it's structural change, whether it's cultural, not so much change, but rather cultural cultivation of the aspects that you want to bring to the surface. And I think it's really a challenge and a question for large organizations to really break down the silos.
I think you're right. And so in the work that we do at Wolf Olins, which is a brand consultancy, an awful lot of it is how can we use branding to unify our own people, either because organizations, as you say, tend to fragment, or they grow through acquisition, in which case they don't feel unified at all. So how do you use the power of the corporate brand to make people feel part of the same thing?
So in this respect, brand really helps strategy.
And then there's a question: does brand help strategy, or does strategy help brand? Which we've been debating. Brand is strategy.
I think that is a massive part of what branding is.
But it's also interesting what Toby was saying there about the organisation that she works for and how they recruit people. Because of course brands have personalities. And the employees are a reflection of that personality as well. The tone of voice that they use, the way they interact with people, and so on. So important.
Yes. And of course, this has exploded in the last 5-10 years through social media, when people are commenting on behalf of their own organisation in a way, but also as themselves. That's another kind of fragmentation. Is that you suddenly an organisation has a million voices instead of one. We are at 23 minutes past the hour, so we've got another 7 minutes or so to go. Probably time for one more question. So this is an interesting one. Someone who's asking, so what is this brand leadership course like? What's the best and the worst of it? So someone wanting a kind of honest story from inside the brand leadership course, that of the best and the worst. Just while you two think about it, Peter, how would you respond to that?
Okay, well, I think the best of the course is the fact that it gives such an intense experience, and I think it is intense. There are times when the students are working very hard, probably all hours of the day at times, but they are getting so much from it. Not just the learning, not just sort of information, but also a huge number of soft skills. So I think we do a lot of teamwork, we do a lot of presentation work, a lot of communications work, and the way I look at it is a bit like a family. We call ourselves the brand family. So we laugh together, but we also cry together. We support each other, we argue, we bicker, but we always have a good time together as well. So I think it is hard, without doubt, it is hard work. But there's an old expression that nothing that's worth having comes easy. And I think the course and the what you get out of it is worth having, because you get such a rich experience, and it's not just classroom. In the last 2 weeks we've been on 2 trips to London to visit 4 different organisations, and I know that Robert, at the moment you're putting together some exciting projects for the next semester with real clients. So I think students come away with this with a lot.
Helen, what's your? We've only got 4 minutes, so a quick answer to this.
Sorry,
no, that was fine. That was fine. I think you made an important point, which is that, as with anything, the good and the bad are 2 sides of the same coin, aren't they? They're not separate things. So,
I'm sorry, I can't really find anything bad that I'm experiencing so far. I'm learning a lot of new things. I'm learning to collaborate with people, which is very, very important in branding. It is a challenge for me. I like to think I'm getting better at it thanks to the course. We are encouraged to do our own research, to learn, to search for our own information, to always think critically about things, which is very, very important, and really is an aspect.
Thinking critically is
okay. Yes. And I just can't wait to see what's next in the course. I love it.
Yeah, it's pretty awesome. I think a lot of the times when people go on about something really well, they're like, oh, they just have to say that because their lecturers are sat there. No. To be honest with you, I think it's one thing that teaches you the skill of hard work, and also that reminds you that you're all in this together with a group of people. The other day we were in the classroom and we had people. It was 4 of us, and someone ended up crying because we were just talking about life, and it was this moment that I said, if you guys ever need anything, and vice versa, you can come and we can have study sessions together. And another thing I think that's very important about the course is the amount of cultures we have within one room. It is incredible to hear stories from different cultures. I love culture. I love food. And that's great to have people just come from so many different cultures and share experiences that I had no idea Greece was as turbulent in terms of the economy. Still, I thought it had gotten over, but I'm sat next to someone who's from Greece telling me this is what's going on and this is what I want to do. So it's great having different people. It's a lot of work. It is a lot of hard work that you have to put through, but it is helpful and it is necessary if you want to be successful and great in life as a human being.
I think we're hearing the similar message, aren't we? It is hard work, and it's not easy work. This is a difficult subject where even the meanings of the words are unclear. What does the word brand really mean? It's a difficult subject, but on the other hand, there is a lot of help from each other, I think. And I don't know, Peter, the thing that I love most as a teacher is when I don't have to teach anymore. And we've found this in the last couple of classes with you guys, where you've been doing bits of project work and then presenting not to me but to each other for feedback, and I just stand back and watch. And this is you guys learning from each other, and as you say, that you have so many experiences and so many cultures that you bring, so much to learn from each other, and for me that's fantastically rewarding to see that happening in the classroom. So
and I think the point you made about culture is really well made. This year for the first time we've had people from countries we've never had before, which is good. But it's not only cultures, but it's also ages as well. I think when we look at the people we have on the course, some of them are straight from university, but they've got experience because they've done something in their holidays, in their holiday jobs. They've worked, they've got some drive. But other people, they're the other end of the spectrum. I think the oldest person we've had on the course is in their 50s. So it does appeal to a wide segment of cultures, ages, but that's what makes the classroom interesting.
Right. Great. So I think what we're saying, the course, good and bad, 2 sides of the same coin, but the same is true of branding, as we said right at the start, that it's a force for good in some ways. The very thing that makes it a force for good can also make it a force for bad, and I guess it's our job to make sure that we use this in the best possible way. We are at 30 minutes. Thank you very much indeed, Peter, Helen, Toby, and thank you for taking part in this webinar. Enjoy the rest of The Secret Power of Brands, and you may end up following in Helen's footsteps.
We'd love to see you here anyway. UEA is a lovely place to study. Okay. All right. Thanks very much.
Thanks.
Bye.
Bye, guys.
Bye.